I said, wait. Everything that goes wrong is not your fault. NASA does everything perfectly. And he says, who is at fault then? And I said, it's the U.S. military. And he said, when would you like to come?
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to this week's show, brought to you as always by the best formatting solution in the galaxy. Hello. They're wonderful. They're so good that we sing songs about them.
Exactly. We wax lyrical.
Wax lyrical.
Wax or whack? I'm not sure. Anyway, they are fantabulous, as we've announced many times. You know, you can do the forced edges. Sounds rather illegal, but it's not. So sprayed edges and forced edges.
Depends on where you're from, really, I guess.
Yeah, well, it just happens every day in Tennessee. But forced edges and sprayed edges are two different things. So forced edges is this sneaky little way of prepping the files with basically an image around, or the part of an image around the edge. And there's software you can get there that'll build this for you. And essentially, it doesn't really cost you anything more to do a forced edge. Pop it in Vellum and then do the book. So if you want to do a little run of, like if you're going to a signing and you say, hey, I want to take 50 books to this signing, and so I'm going to do a print run of those, you can use Vellum to format them with these forced edges, and you've got an image on the edge of your book. So you've got this sexy special one that really doesn't cost you anything more to then take to a signing.
I want to do a little diver that swims up the side.
I've got all kinds of ideas to do for forced edges stuff. I've just got to, for me, living where I am, I've got to figure out how to get it done, get the book.
Third world, whatever. So
yeah, my little creepy island. But for Author Nation, later in the year, in November, in Vegas, that I'll be coming over for, and I have a signing table at, and I'm in the anthology and all that jazz. It'd be a good time. I'm probably going to do something special for there to sell there. Cool. Yeah. All right. Thank you to Vellum. Big thank you to all our Patreon supporters. We have been remiss, Doug. Remiss.
We're often remiss. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that's true. But we haven't mentioned some of the names of the folks in the last few months that have been signing up with us on the old Patreon there. So huge thanks to Patrick, Cheryl, David, Rob, and Kim, who all signed up on the Patreon, and they get the really cool bonus stuff. And we just finished, we're doing this intro after we recorded this episode with an amazing guest and great extra stuff that's in there for our bonus subscribers, just teasing the shit out of you right there on it. So a couple of dollars a month, you too can be a special person and be on our Patreon.
You can be special.
Not the special that we two are, but actually really special. And
my mama says I'm special.
Yes, she does. And she had to pay extra in school for it. So the
okay.
leading straight in to our guest this week, the amazing New York Times bestseller Tess Gerritsen is with us, which we cannot wait. We'll chat with her shortly. But first, a listener question from another amazing recent guest that we had, Lisa Gardner. Lisa Gardner, thank you so much for joining us the other week for the interview and for sticking around for a listener question. So you have something for us. What you got?
So this is my favorite question to ask all authors. What do you do to get yourself inspired and start writing for the day?
Oh, I don't think Doug can say. A little extra time in the shower.
I jog naked through the pasture with a horse. I don't know.
Don't try this at home. Viewers,
don't try this at home. Mostly, I think the big thing for me is I like to, when I'm working on a book, and I just finished a book this weekend, so I'm actually at that point where I'm just going through. So now it's like, for the moment, I'm not thinking about anything except for what the book was, so I can go back through and do my read through. But when I'm working on in the middle of a book, it's constantly going in my head. So kind of like we talked about the guy who writes for an hour. I'm like, to me, I think that'd be perfect because I'm working on that thing right up to the moment, so I'm ready to get the keyboards burning. Usually, though, still have to have a little coffee in the morning to I do my coffee and my Wordle first thing, and then I jump into writing. So
I like it. Wordle. Wordle is the key to your success. This is
Wordle.
You've all heard it now.
It's going to be the credit in the front of the book. I credit these
Credit
first pages to
Wordle.
Wordle.
Credit Wordle. Some days I credit Wordle, and I'm like, what? I don't even know this word. What the heck is going on? But
yeah, I pretty much just put my ass in the seat. As we talked about in the show, it's a business, and I kind of treat it that way. And I think I probably could do with a better system of preparing myself for the writing side of it to get going. I love this thing that we talked about with the chap who sets aside the time, so he's really keen to do it. But the first thing I normally do is read through either what I wrote the day before or the last part of what I wrote the day before. And then I look at my notes, because I try and make some notes at the end of the day if I left it hot, as you call it, in the middle of something, so I can kind of jump back in there. But generally speaking, I find I'm more creative in the mornings. So I try and get writing done right away. I'm kind of an early riser, so normally I message Doug when I get up, because he's not an early riser, and it annoys the shit out of him because he forgets to turn his phone off.
I do get up at 6:30 in the morning, so I'm not the early riser, but he's like waking up before the
He's getting better.
Up.
I think over the years we've known each other now, I've coerced him into getting up earlier by annoying him with messages before he
I'm
gets
the
up.
dark 30 writer. I feel like it's best before you start thinking too much about the day.
And do you have a routine? Do you have anything that has to be in place or going for you to sit down and start?
My process is very similar to yours. I first thing in the morning, and I start with what I wrote the day before, because proofing what I already did is less intimidating. And then by definition, you start thinking, I can fix it. And then by definition, that also leads you into, okay, and now this is what we're off and running. I cannot write in the afternoons for love nor money. At 3 p.m., if you told me to plant my butt in the seat and produce 1,000 words, I would just curl up in the seat and take a nap. I'm not going to lie. So it's interesting. The biorhythms, like piece of it, like morning, or like kind of got to find your fit.
I've kind of found the rhythm here. We have to drive into town to go to a gym. So we kind of have lunch. I try and do a little bit more work. And then we go to the gym about 2:30 or so. The exercising is always an idea starter for me. And so if I have any kind of problem in the manuscript or what have you, I chew it over and I normally come up with some kind of solution. So that gives me a little burst of energy when I come back, because I've kind of fixed something.
Well, that's kind of what I do. I'll draft something, and then I'll go walk with the dogs in the mountains. And in the afternoon, if anything, I can revise, but I can't carry on. But it's like while I'm walking, oh, wait, that's going to be a problem. Oh, wait, you had the scene 100 pages ago, the beans, you got to account for that kind of, it's like when the rest of the light bulbs go on. I mean,
that oh shit moment when you realize what you just did just screwed up something back in the first third. Brilliant.
I was brilliant. Now, not so much so.
Hey, thank you so much. Great question. We really appreciate you sticking around.
This has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Tess Gerritsen, welcome to the show. This is an absolute delight and an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Exciting times with another book coming out soon, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But first of all, give the listeners who've been living under a rock for the last 30 years, give us a little bit of info on how you first started getting interested in writing and when you were first published.
I knew I was a writer when I was 7 years old. And that seems to be a universal age for a lot of, writers I know. 7 is when we self-identify what we're going to be. Instead of being a policeman or a nurse or anybody else, I wanted to be a writer. But then I ended up going to medical school. So I became a doctor somewhere in the middle there and really didn't get back into writing until I was an intern. And then I was home with my 2 kids on maternity leave and I wrote my first book. That's how it all started, probably around age 28. Published my first book, a couple of years later.
I love the way you just glide through the fact that you became a doctor. Notice how the age went from 7 to 28 there. There's a little bit involved in becoming a doctor.
Yeah. I just became one. I was like, hey, what are we going to do this week? I think I'm going to become a doctor. It sounds like, yeah.
Well, I'm from Asian American family. And if you know anything about Asian Americans, you wonder why so many of them become doctors. And it's because I have parents who kind of demanded it of me. They're just so focused on security and making sure that you have your place in the world. So I did what they wanted, and I went to medical school and became an internal medicine specialist, practiced for a couple of years, but maternity leave was a blessing for me because it allowed me time to be at home. Yeah, there was a baby sleeping next to me.
I was going to say, yeah, don't forget that part, otherwise your son's going to disown you.
Yeah. There was a baby there who occasionally needed my attention, but it allowed me time to write my first book.
So one of the things that's amazing is you've never been afraid to venture into new genres. I mean, early on, some romance, then the medical thrillers, then crime, and now espionage. And you've even dabbled in horror with your son, I believe, in writing
made a horror
screenplays.
film. And you must remember, I did science fiction as well.
And
there you go.
how could we forget the science fiction? So have these decisions to move around been to feed the muse purely, or business decisions?
It was never a business decision. I mean, if you were going to be a business, savvy person, you would never change genres. That's what your publisher wants. They want you to write the same book, only different.
Yeah.
So my bouncing around between all these crazy different genres was all about the story. A story would occur to me, and maybe it wasn't what I was used to writing, but I had to write the story. And, I got a lot of advice not to do that. I was told again and again that you've got a brand, don't ruin the brand. I couldn't listen.
Well, and you've done pretty well with that. I mean, it's not like obviously, I think the Rizzoli and Isles TV series alone ran for 7 years. So how did that show change how you wrote that series? That's always kind of...
I kept writing the series the way I'd always written it. And anybody who watches the show and reads the book sees the differences. And they, when things go to Hollywood, they really change a lot. In particular, they made my very ordinary looking characters glamorous. And that removed a lot of, I think, what my readers loved about these characters. They could identify with Jane Rizzoli because she wasn't a beautiful woman in the book. She was the wallflower, and we've all felt like wallflowers at some time in our lives.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
But then they cast...
always been a lily. That's all I
know. Oh, well, congratulations. You're the only one in the world. Then they cast Angie Harmon in the role. Never a wallflower in her life, I'm sure. So what changed for me maybe was I tried to inject a little more humor in the stories because the show was funny. They did a great job with that. But other than that, my characters remain the same.
Well, it's a great show. Although, like I said, my wife was a huge fan, and I remember we watched Rizzoli and Isles when it came out, and she was like, "Well, that didn't happen in the books."
No.
So, but and you said you've always said you are a doctor. Where does that clinical knowledge actually help you write the thriller? And like where does it then also become a liability? As in, where do you it's going to slow down the story if you're overly accurate?
Obviously, it helped when I wrote my first medical thriller, which was Harvest. I didn't have to do as much research because I had the contacts. If I wanted to talk to a cardiothoracic surgeon, I would pick up the phone and call somebody I knew. So that helped with the truthfulness of what it's like to be in the operating room or the autopsy room. But you're absolutely right. You have to be very careful when you're dealing with a highly technical subject that you don't overwhelm the reader. But on the other hand, the reader wants to know your secrets. And to explain your secrets, sometimes you have to give a little more detail than you normally would. So my trick about injecting technical details is try to find an emotional hook to that detail. I don't have to stop and explain what ventricular tachycardia is. I don't really bother to, but you can see from what the characters, how they respond to that, that it's a bad thing. If you have a character say, "Oh my God, he's in VFib," you don't need to know what VFib is. You just need to know it's a very bad thing. Right. So that was really, I think, my trick about injecting technical stuff is always find the emotion behind what that means.
What about, as obviously technology has changed, practice has changed, have you had to learn new things that maybe because you're not I assume not a practicing doctor, you don't have anybody taking appointments right now. Are you having to keep up with the knowledge of things just to kind of keep that up to date? So you're not going, "Oh, well, they did this," and somebody goes, "That's outdated. We haven't done that in 10 years," kind of thing.
Well, yeah. Well, the drugs never stay the same. So the drugs that I was using 30 years ago are not what they're using now. I think the best example I have for keeping up or learning new stuff was I wrote this book called Gravity. It was a medical thriller set aboard the International Space Station. And what do I know about space? But, I pitched that to my editor. They said, great, go ahead. And then I thought, oh my God, what do I do now? I don't know anything about the space program. So I ended up spending 2 years just doing research on the space program, life in space, medicine and microgravity. No matter what you write, you're always learning something new. And that's really like a lot of the fun of the whole career is I feel like I've learned a lot about Chinese mythology and archaeology and aerospace medicine. It's a lot of fun.
And now, a quick word from this episode's sponsor.
Everyone's luck runs out. The only question is when. Last Roll of the Die is a brand new thriller anthology curated by Reader Nation, bringing together 20 stories where one decision changes everything.
Featuring best-selling authors like J.D. Barker, Mary Stone, and our own very sexy Nicholas Harvey. This collection is packed with unforgettable twists, impossible choices, and edge-of-your-seat suspense.
It launches on Backaket August 18th with ebook, paperback, and collector's editions available. Follow the campaign now to claim a 15% early bird discount during the first 48 hours. Find out more at authornation.live.
And now, back to the show.
You've almost answered the next question, which we were going to ask you, which is about the research-writing ratio. Obviously, it varies depending on the books you're doing. And you're doing books in series for some of them. So as you go deeper into the series, you're already kind of clued in on a lot of that stuff. But do you do all your research up front, or do you do enough to get you started?
I think I do enough to get me started, because once you've got that germ of an idea for a story, you're so anxious to get started. You don't want to wait.
Oh, yeah.
Years.
Oh, yeah.
You just want to get going, and then you learn stuff. You say, oh, now I got to find out what this little section of knowledge I need to acquire. You should never get in the way of your own enthusiasm. That is really my rule, is once you've got that head of steam, get going. And a lot of times I'll think, I'll put a little sticky there and say, look this up later, and just keep on moving forward.
Yeah, you were talking about the writing about the space stuff. You need to do enough research that you don't launch up in this whole plan out your whole spacecraft, describe it all in the early chapters, and then find out that it can't be like that.
Well, that's okay. That was the one exception where I did have to do a lot of upfront research. I knew it was about a disaster in space, but I didn't know enough about normal spacecraft operations to come up with a plausible disaster. So that one I went to NASA for. How I approached them is a tale in itself, because I remember calling up the public affairs officer in Houston and saying, I'm a thriller writer. I want to write about a disaster in space. Can you help me? And he said, do you know what the purpose of my office is here? It's to make us look good. Tell me what goes on in your story. And I said, well, everybody except one person dies aboard ISS, and a shuttle crashes on landing, killing everybody aboard. And he said, I don't really think I want to cooperate with this. I said, wait. Everything that goes wrong is not your fault. NASA does everything perfectly. And he says, well, who is at fault then? And I said, it's the U.S. military. And he said, when would you like to come? I was an anthropology major in college, so I'm good at identifying tribes. And the tribe I was trying to approach was civilian space people. They have an inherent conflict with military space people because they're fighting for the same tax dollars. They don't agree with the same goals. I mean, really, the people who worked at NASA, other than the military, they're Star Trek people.
Right.
They believe in space for all mankind. And military is like, that's for our killer satellites and nobody else.
Yeah. Where do we put the rockets?
Right. So that's how I really got into NASA. I was there for, a week. I talked to everybody I needed to. They were incredibly wonderful. And then I went to Cape Canaveral to, for the Kennedy Space Center. And so all that together gave me a good feeling for how do you make a disaster? What can go wrong? But you have to know what goes right first.
Well, so also and let's talk a little bit, jumping from space to spies, because in your book, The Spy Coast, which is book 1 in the Martini Club, great book too, it comes out of discovering that your Camden, Maine, where you live, is actually like a haven for retired CIA operatives, which is kind of cool. And before we came on, I was talking to my wife and my father-in-law about that. And they're like, is it because they know that's where the best place to hide is? There's a whole now string of why that is. But what kind of that led you to moving into espionage? What's the difference though on a craft level doing espionage versus doing like writing the medical thriller or writing a spy novel? There's so many variations there. So
it's all down to research. But what I was really researching when I was doing the spy novels was personalities. What kind of person becomes a spy? How are they different from everybody else? That was what I was trying to capture, were characters who would be attracted to work in intelligence and what happens to them after they retire. So it was a lot of reading memoirs. Spies like to write memoirs, and hopefully they're
secretive. We can't talk about it now, but
yes, you want them to be telling the truth in their own memoir. So it was just trying to get a feeling for the kind of people that do this, because that's who my characters are. I just happen to live in this really kind of peculiar community that I lucked into when I moved here. And it's an interesting story. Why did so many spies end up in Maine?
Yeah, it could have been retired serial killers. You really did luck out. There's lots of things it could have been that wouldn't have been nearly as good.
It does feel like it's going to be safer there because they're like, well, we're safe here. So.
Yes, and they're probably all well armed up here.
I was going to say, yes, they're all carrying.
It's a puzzle, and it's a question that I've asked many people. Why did they end up here? I've gotten several different answers. I think that part of it is that this is far from any nuclear target. That was one explanation that was given me. Another is that this used to be a place for safe houses. So if you wanted somebody to go away and disappear for a while, they'd send them up to Maine, and they liked it here. Another explanation is the very first generation, when it was moving over from OSS to CIA, these were people who were recruited from Ivy League schools. They were from Yale and Harvard and, they were blue bloods. And these people probably came from money. And when they were growing up, Maine was their playground. So rich people used to come here all the time for summertime. So they just retired in places that they were familiar with. But it's a fascinating story and about the origins of it. But what I love about it is that I'm surrounded by so many smart people. And it shows up in my new book. We have a conference here that's been going on for about 40 years called the Camden Conference. Started, rumor has it, by a bunch of spies who wanted to get together every year and talk about global affairs. And so they get speakers from all around the world to come and talk to this conference. And the public is invited if you can get a ticket. And every time I go to the Camden Conference and somebody local stands up and asks a question, I'm always blown away by how in-depth these questions are, how clearly well-informed they are about international affairs. And I always think another spy. So yes, I am surrounded by them, but it makes for a very lively community.
I have a different people that surround me in Tennessee and Mississippi, so it's not quite spy level people. So, but they do have a lot of guns. We do have a lot of guns.
Let's talk about the Shadow Friends. It's the new book, third book in the Martini Club series. Comes out in August when this will be airing. Let's not give away too much, but give the listeners a brief on what to expect from the new one.
Well, if they've read the first two books and they know my 5 spies, they're retired spies, and one of them is, her name is Ingrid. I think of her as the Hermione of the group. She's the really clever one. And it opens like years before when she's still working as a spy, and she's in France trying to protect an informant. And things go wrong, and the informant gets killed, and her fellow agents get killed. So now it's years later, she's still haunted by that horrifying disaster. Out of the woodwork comes an old lover and spy who was her colleague, wants to pull her back into the business because they have a chance of finding the assassins that attacked them years before. So Ingrid is, she's in a quandary because she's happily married. And here's this old lover back in her life, and he still looks really good. I mean, he's still hot.
As old lovers always do, don't they? Yeah.
Well, as you get older,
none of them
as you get older, you start to look at 70-year-old men and think, well, I could do him. It's like, okay, desire ages along with you, but it's still there.
That is true. Yeah, and thankfully we do, because at least you have something more to talk to a 70-year-old man about.
Right. So here's man. Ingrid. Here's Ingrid pulled back into the business because there is another assassination in her little town. And it appears to be the same assassin who attacked her years before. So she joins her ex-lover. They go off into the wild, and leaving behind her poor husband who's trying to pick up the pieces. And so the story is told from his point of view, as trying to understand his wife's behavior, and the group of other spies who are their friends, all trying to understand what is Ingrid up to.
Great explanation, obviously, of your own book. I love the bit in the middle. Doug, by the way, is being stalked by an ex, but she lives in a trailer park in Florida. It's very, very different.
She has all three of her teeth. Thank you very much.
All right. So I'm going to fangirl a little bit here because I'm reading the book, and we got an advance copy. Thank you. And the opening chapter for me is a masterclass. It's the inciting incident. You talked about it being set in France back in time with Ingrid, and it accomplishes so much. Basically, it's got an inciting incident. It makes you fall in love with the poor girl who's trying to be protected. You're reintroduced to Ingrid, who's one of the people you love from she's part of the family from the other books. You introduce this fella who's going to come up later. Writers, this is how you info dump without info dumping. How far is the end product from the first draft? I got to ask you that much. And did this take some tinkering with to get right?
I probably wrote that first chapter it was after I finished the rest of the book. I just knew that there was going to be a flashback. But what I was really trying to establish, and the real goal of this story was to put her marriage through a stress test. I wanted to see how this marriage would survive. So her marriage, to her lovely husband, Lloyd, who's, let's put it this way, he's not the action hero that Rodrigo is. Lloyd is very domesticated. He cooks. He was an analyst. He was never a covert operative. So he sat in a desk all his CIA career. And she married him, and she feels secure and settled with him. But that first chapter was really intended to show that she was going to have a choice. Was she going to choose to stay with Rodrigo, who was her lover, or was she going to go back to that analyst who was fallen in love with her? And that was the whole point of it. There was action, and there was a setup of the crime, and there was introducing Rodrigo, but it was more, this is Ingrid making her choice to go home and marry Lloyd. Now, we've lost somebody.
Yeah, Doug. He'll be back. It's I'm on an island in the Caribbean, and I have better internet than he does in the great state of Tennessee. All right, let's move on to talking about some of the business stuff a little bit. So we all dream about getting a TV deal or a movie deal. And you've had that. You've had a TV series, you've had movie options, you've had a lot, and you've had the good and bad of it. And there's some lessons to be learned there, which I think on your website, you share some of that stuff. Talk to us a little bit about what happened with the Gravity situation.
Yeah. So this is a very long story. And I actually, if you want to read it in depth, there is this book called Hollywood versus the Author. And I have a whole chapter in there about suing Hollywood. I wrote the book Gravity, which was about the International Space Station, a woman doctor. She's a lone survivor after a series of bad things happens, and she has to survive aboard the International Space Station. I sold that book in 1999. The book came out in 1999. I sold that to New Line Cinema for a very, very big deal. It made the front page of Daily Variety as the biggest deal of the year. It went into development, and then it never got out of development, as these things happen. So over the intervening years, New Line Cinema was acquired by Warner Brothers. And then Warner Brothers came out with a movie called Gravity, same title, about a female medical doctor trapped aboard the International Space Station after a series of accidents happens. And it seemed pretty familiar to me. But then I thought, well, these things happen. Warner Brothers had the right to make my film because they owned the copyright. And then my agent in New York got an interesting phone call by somebody I would just call Deep Throat, who called and was very disturbed. This person had worked with New Line Cinema at the time my book Gravity was being developed. This person said that a director had been attached to the movie, and that director was Alfonso Cuarón. Now, Alfonso Cuarón was the director and writer of the Warner Brothers movie Gravity. When my agent, and by then I was told I needed a lawyer, when his people were approached, Cuarón claimed he had never heard of me and never heard of my book, even though he was attached to my movie in 1999. So what did I do? Probably the stupid thing, but I couldn't help it. I sued Warner Brothers, not for copyright infringement, because I admit they had the right to make the movie. I wanted a based upon credit. In other words, based upon the book buy. That's what novelists really care about. We want people to buy our books. And just imagine how many more books I might have sold if I had had that particular credit. But I was cut out entirely. I mean, they said I didn't have anything to do with the story. The man who claimed he wrote the whole thing in 2 weeks said that it just came to him in a dream. Anyway, the whole thing was pretty sordid. The lawsuit lasted about a year. We were ruled against again and again by the judge who was, unfortunately, I went to the Ninth Circuit in LA. That's where we sued. We were essentially were defeated by one of her rulings, which was that when Warner Brothers acquired New Line Cinema, they acquired the rights to buy movie, but they did not acquire the obligations to that contract. So they got to make the movie, but they didn't have to honor the contract that I had signed with New Line Cinema. And at that point, I had spent a lot of money. And even if I had won that appeal on that particular point, it would still have gone back to the original judge who continued to rule against us. My husband was having all kinds of anxiety about this whole thing, because now Warner Brothers is saying, if you continue with this lawsuit, we're going to come after you for court costs. And, then we're talking about millions of dollars. And I felt that I had made my point, because I was not going to sign a non-disclosure agreement. What was important to me is that I could continue to keep talking about it and even writing about it. But the upshot is that that chapter in Suing Hollywood is now being used in law schools. I have taught a couple of law school classes where the professors, their point that they want to make to their students is, number one, where you file your lawsuit is important. Do not file in the Ninth Circuit if you want to have a chance in Hollywood. File it somewhere else. And number two, everything depends on which judge you land. That's where justice lands. It's all about the judge.
And now, a quick word from this episode's sponsor.
Hey, it's Jamie Davis, show manager for Author Nation. I hope to get to know you a lot more at the conference coming up in November, so make sure you come over and say hi. Also, someone requested more dad jokes, so don't blame me for what happens next. Like, why did the elephant use her trunk as a bookmark? Because that way, she knows where she stopped reading.
And now, back to the show.
With the new series, you're with Thomas and Mercer, which of course are Amazon, and there's some TV and movie rights attached to that. Did your experience with Gravity be part of what drove you to go with Thomas and Mercer and hammer out this deal?
When I wrote the first book in the series, The Spy Coast, there were several publishers who were interested. I went with Thomas and Mercer because it came with a TV deal attached. So it's still in development. I understand they've hired the writer's room. They have like 5 writers attached to the first season. They have a showrunner, and that's the latest I've heard. These things move at a glacial pace. So we'll wait and see. I mean, it could be in development for the rest of my life, but who knows?
I'm guessing the contract you signed with Amazon was a lot tidier than the one that you had.
Yes. And everybody knows where the source of this story is. It's from my books.
Since we're talking about Thomas and Mercer, because wide versus exclusive, which is kind of what a lot of indie authors are big. That's always a big question. Should I go with the big trad or exclusively to Amazon for the Kindle Unlimited? And so Thomas and Mercer are famously strong on ebooks, and it's they've got the massive Kindle Unlimited subscription base. But in this same process, you gave up Apple, Nook, and the other ones. So how did that feel for the trade? And do you think that the Kindle Unlimited is worth that trade-off?
That's a good question. I mean, there are some things you do surrender, and that's the ebook versions from other distributors. And you also pretty much surrender any chance of being on the New York Times bestseller list, because Barnes & Noble won't carry you. You have to be in Barnes & Noble to get on the Times list. On the other hand, I have sold a ton more books than I ever have before. When I look at the number of copies that have gone out for The Spy Coast, it far, far exceeds anything I sold with other publishers. So if you're interested in eyes on your books, I think Amazon makes sense.
I like dollars in my wallet. That's where I want to come through. So if eyes on my books works, then I want them to buy my book and put.
Yeah, we're sort of doing this for a living, so yeah.
Put dollar, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit to the, yes, I'd love to be on the New York Times list, but at the same time, I like making a lot of money.
Well, you can make a lot of money at Amazon as well. The amount of money isn't that different, actually, which is interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Just the number of books.
The number of books, yeah. I mean, and I think that Amazon figured out early that pricing books a little cheaper, you sell a lot more. Even though your books are priced lower, you still make the same amount of money because of volume.
Yeah, and page reads, of course, which are enormous. Like for you, they would be huge numbers of page reads. That 1 month early access in Amazon's system before the official release date is huge as well, right? So that gets a lot of interest. So let's move on to another project that you could tell us about is Vacation Land.
Well, Vacation Land, I'm afraid, is on the shelf right now at NBC, but I have another TV show.
But wait, I have another.
It's just been filmed. I can't remember. I think the title is called Murder in a Cold Place. But the same writing partner that I had for Vacation Land, he and I teamed up. It's a wheel of movies at Lifetime featuring 2 female investigators in Anchorage, Alaska.
That'll be the cold part.
Yes. Well, the idea was that we had somebody who's from Alaska and somebody who's a fish out of water. They hate each other. They get paired up and they solve crimes. So the first one we wrote, as I said, it's been filmed, and we are now in meetings for movie 2, 3, and 4 with the same characters.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. So, well, you do have a lot of books like under your belt. So do you ever write something though that like just blows you away, like gets you running out of the office to go tell your husband or somebody else that's important? You're like, oh, I got
texting another writer.
Yes.
Well,
I just killed somebody.
It's really funny. What's exciting to me are the books that are like unlike anything else I've written. The really weird ones, the strange ones. I wrote a book once called Playing with Fire, which was a very thin little book that started off as a short story. It's about a female violinist who buys a piece of sheet music in Rome, takes it home, and every time she plays it on her violin, her little girl goes berserk and does something horrible, turns into a little monster. So she thinks that this music has some sort of supernatural power, and she goes back to Italy to find out who wrote it. And then in intervening chapters, we go back to pre-war Venice, and we find out where that music came from. So it ends up being kind of this almost ghostly, haunted thing that came along with another dream that I had where the music appeared to me, and I wrote the music and it was recorded. So it was this combination story plus violin piece that became one project. And I was really excited about that. So people can go online and listen to the recording of it, recorded by a famous concert violinist. So that was one of those, those weird things that come to you every so often. You don't know where it comes from. It came to me in a nightmare, but I was excited about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you said a dream, but it sounded a little more haunting than a dream.
I was going to say, yeah. And I want to assume that maybe you do at least know how to read music, because I do not. And if I came up with a piece,
yeah, I do.
That'd be like,
well, this is the fun thing about it, because I was writing the book and I was describing this piece of music that did not exist, and I think all my descriptions of it fed into my subconscious, so that when I woke up, I was hearing the melody. So I was able to write it down and sent it to a producer friend of mine, and he lined it up with this concert violinist who recorded it. So it was just one of those bizarre things that happened.
That's insane. I'm going to try to get some of my songs that I sing in the shower.
Yeah, you could have somebody else transcribe it into music.
Totally. Absolutely. I just can sing it out loud and let it just kind of get trained. What do you think? I think
it might be music adjacent. we can try it.
I told you, I play the radio really well. That's my skill.
So let's talk about a little collaboration you had with some no-hoper called Lee Child. So tell us about that. I'm dying to know how that came about. Was that over drinks like, hey, what we should do? Or was it a bit more strategic? Or
it was our editor. Lee and I have the same editor in the UK. And she just came up with this great idea. She goes, hey, wouldn't it be fun if you two wrote a short story together? And because Jack Reacher was about to go to Maine in one of the stories. And she said, and Maggie Bird lives in Maine. Wouldn't it be great if they met up there? I have to say, I was intimidated. I thought, I can't write a story.
No, you weren't.
I can't write a story with Lee Child. I was so intimidated. I just said, I'm not sure I can do this. But Lee was all in. So the way we handled it is Lee wrote the first chapter. I wrote the next chapter. He wrote the next one. I mean, we just kind of played. We had no idea where it was going, but we would play off each other's chapters before. And I think the short story was a lot of fun. It's Jack Reacher goes to Maine because somebody there is doing a search on his dead brother. He wants to know who is searching. He shows up on Maggie Bird's doorstep, and she knew Jack Reacher's dead brother. They worked together in Bangkok. And so anyway, it goes from there, but it ended up being very exciting with a lot of gunfire and somebody's Lee changed one thing in my part. I said that Reacher shoots the guy in the head, and Lee just added a little, and the top of his skull hit the wall. Oh, thank you, Lee, for that detail.
Yeah. You missed out the medical part. It's, Doug and I write together. Now you're talking Lee Child, Tess Gerritsen level. We're on a slightly different level, but Doug and I do write together. And when we do our co-write, we do go back and forth in chapters in the same way. And one of the things we always talk about is when you get the chapter from your partner and you read through it, you get excited. You get like, oh, this is good. Now I got to give something back. I feel like it elevates your game, right?
Well, because you feed off each other, right? Or you torture each other. But do you ever get that to that stage where you get a chapter and you go, I don't know what to do with this. This is horrible. Or if you do, you will not admit it, right?
I would say not with Nick, but I have with
I've had it with a different one that I was thinking I've got. What do I do with this?
Yeah, and that's a danger of collaboration. You have to know your writing partner very well and trust them.
I think you're on the right track with Lee Child.
I think he's on the right track.
That is a
good
Tess. Point right there.
That's really where it is. Like, I love Lee Child, but I mean, Jack Reacher he's not going to do any medical procedures.
So with a huge backlist, you've got the Rizzoli and Isles franchise, you've got the Martini Club ongoing, we've got all this TV stuff and movie stuff going. How do you decide what your next year looks like? Like, I mean, how far out do you plan? And what guides what you're going to do in the next 12 to 20
Or are
months?
you looking for a break?
Yeah,
that's another question.
Stop the train.
I have been saying I was going to retire for the last 15 years. And
Don't you dare, Tess.
I haven't been able to.
No,
because,
you're not allowed to.
What drives me is, I got an idea. Oh, what happens next? That's just like this. It really, we are obsessed people. I don't know any writer who's willingly retired.
Short of losing like your faculties, I don't think that I would. I think that I always have I want to write something. There's always going to be something that's got to be.
Right. And I think most of us, even if we suddenly could not find a publisher anymore, we would still be writing. We would write for ourselves, or we would write and put it up on the internet because people are talking to us in our heads and we want them to have their voice.
A lot.
Yeah, I know. Shut up. So it's when you hear that voice in your head, it's like, yeah, it's such a gift because they're telling the story and you're just the channel.
All right, we have a couple of questions to wrap up here. This has been so special spending time with you. So this is a question we ask all of our guests, which is, what do you think your author's superpower is?
Dedication. It is that I will not give up. I do not give up. I have nursed so many hopeless manuscripts to the end. I think.
Same.
Yes.
Same.
You have to be willing to work with the impossibly bad writing that we sometimes do and fix it.
That's great. Good. Perseverance. All right. We have the last question for this part of the interview.
Our last question is our wheel of questions.
Oh, okay.
So it's a random
question. You didn't know you were on a game show.
Give you. Yeah, it's all fun and games here. So we don't take anything seriously. Okay. Ooh, this is a good one. Oh, Nick, I can't wait to hear yours. What is your biggest ick?
Bodily functions. I don't like to write about people's bathroom habits. It's like I can skip past that. All right, I won't talk about that.
That's fair. Yeah, nobody wants to read that part.
I think
except for
most people
sex.
skip that.
Yeah, sex I can deal with, but all the bathroom stuff, never mind.
But the other bathroom stuff is all stuff. That's fair. Nick, what's your biggest ick?
Right now, it's the Caribbean centipede. So These suckers will grow up to a foot long, and they've got 6 million legs, and they're venomous, slightly venomous, and I'd never heard of them until we were here. And we've had some, what we looked up and we thought they were gargantuan, and these things are about 4 inches long. They're the little baby. But we've had those. We're upstairs and the building is concrete. So I don't know why they're coming in here. But in the last 6 months, we've had 3 of them, and they freak me the...
Oh, yeah. Now, are they all in other places in the Caribbean or just the Caymans?
No, they're throughout the Caribbean, I believe. And yeah, I'd never heard of it. I don't want to run into a fully grown adult one. They're terrifying. So, yeah. What about you, Doug? What do you got?
I don't know. My biggest thing is probably going to be, honestly, I cannot stand rats. Like the idea, like, I don't care. Like you could come with a pet rat. I'm like, why would you have a pet rat? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's just gross. Like this, and I get it. They're smart and whatever, but.
Oh, I got an ick I got to talk to you about. So.
Okay, go ahead.
This is just on NPR.
Welcome to our new show.
The icks.
What's
the
your
icks?
With Tess
the 3
Gerritsen.
icks. Okay.
The 3 icks.
If you listen to NPR, there was a great episode the other day about a woman who's terrified of roaches. So what did she do? She goes to a guy who eats insects and she says, "Tell me how to eat a roach." And and he says, this guy who eats cockroach, he eats crickets, he eats, grubs, and he goes, "They're fine." He says, I have never eaten a roach, but I will try. And so they cook the roach with, garlic and everything. And then he has this roach and the whole radio crew is there. They're all going, "This doesn't smell good." And though he says, "So we're going to bite into it, but be aware that it may squirt, that the inside may squirt." So I'm in the car with my granddaughters and we're all listening to this. We're driving somewhere and the girls are going, "Turn it off, turn it off." And I thought, no, I got to hear this. This is great.
You're plotting your next horror book.
I will say, like the whole squirting thing, like what's that show, the Dr. Pimple Popper? And I'm like, I don't want any part of that because that show is probably the bigger it. Because I'm like, just the idea of that just makes me.
But in case you're interested, the end of the show was that the insect eater said, "No, I think that there's a reason nobody eats cockroaches."
I like the idea of be careful, it might squirt.
That's a T-shirt.
That should be a line in one of your books.
Get that in there somewhere.
Doing an autopsy and be careful, it might
There's
squirt.
a lot of options of how that line could make it in a book. A lot of genres. All right, that's a great place to end this episode, I believe.
Is it really?
Tess, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a real honor.
Thank you. And next show will be the 3 icks.
Absolutely. Stand by for the new show coming soon.
That was a lot of fun. She is a hoot.
Honestly, I'd listened to some interviews with her and everything. She's always nice and friendly and everything else. But she's funny.
She is fun. Oh, I would like to be sitting around I would like to join her Martini Club and just drink.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah,
no kidding.
Fun.
Yeah.
No. But it's interesting. Like she's the idea she's looked at how many books she's done with going with Thomas Mercer now versus her trad days. I found that kind of fascinating.
Very interesting. Yeah. And she said it's steered by the fact that it came with a TV deal in the mix, which is obviously a strong driving influence. But it's also interesting how she talked about more people are reading her books now because of the Amazon distribution. So,
well, I'm sure a lot of that is the Kindle Unlimited and the way Amazon is geared toward selling books. And I mean, people say what you will, but they know what they're doing. They're selling books, and it is fascinating to me. And I think it's neat because she's in Kindle Unlimited. Obviously, we make a lot of money on Kindle Unlimited. I think it's one of those kind of weird symbioses where people are going to come into the KU program because they're like, "Hey, look, I can read Tess Gerritsen," or "Hey, I can read Dean Koontz." It's
a big draw. Thomas and Mercer are pretty switched on when they, and I'm sure they get a very favorable deal, obviously, for names like that. But their draw for people to subscribe, it has to be really high. Very cool. Very cool.
That's very fascinating. Fascinating. Yes. So now, and of course, and as always, please come support the show over at Patreon at patreon.com/the Two Authors Podcast. Your kindness helps cover the cost of bringing the show to you. And so we get to bring great people like Tess Gerritsen and all these people we've had lately. It's been a lot of fun. So if you can jump over there and support us, we appreciate that. So thanks, of course, always to our big friends over at Vellum. As always, we love
big thanks to our big friends. Did you just call Brad's big?
Together as a collective.
Together. they're big brained. Big brain Brad.
I don't know why you had to point it out. Oh, big brain
Brad.
That's your next t-shirt for him, the big brain.
God, I got so many t-shirts to make for the next conference.
Make sure you guys go tryvellum.com/2 authors to find out more. You can find that in our show notes, as well as links to Tess's information and anything else. And we will be back next week with a new episode of the Two Authors Podcast.
Until next time, be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors Podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favourite platform for new shows coming every week.